It was only a matter of time before someone on the left would come out and shill for Joe Biden's failure and call it hugely successful. I give you Kyle Kulinski at Secular Talk.
And it's over. It's done. There are 0 American service members in Afghanistan right now. The evacuation effort was wildly successful. We got out over 120,000 people in record time.
What did you say?
The evacuation effort was wildly successful.
That's what I thought you said.
There's a lot to unpack there, and we're going to. Hey, don't forget to check out our Rumble content because I can deal with stuff there I can't deal with here. So make sure that you click the link below and check us out on Rumble. Most of you know, if you've been watching this channel for any length of time or listen to my radio show, The Afternoon Drive, very rarely do I watch or monitor what we would call mainstream media. And I'm not just talking about CNN or PMSNBC. I don't really watch faux pas news, formerly known as Fox News. Once in a while I'll pull a nugget from Tucker Carlson if I think he has stumbled onto something that nobody else is really talking about. But other than that, I get most of my stuff from channels right here on YouTube when it comes to political commentary. And I watch both sides. I listen to Mark Dice. I watch stuff by Dr. Stephen Turley. I enjoy Breaking Points with Sager and Crystal. And I do watch Jimmy Dore. He's one of my favorites. He and I don't agree on a lot, but I respect the fact that Jimmy Dore seems to be locked into some principles that no matter what, he is just honed on that and he's not budging. And I enormously respect that. And there is an area where I have said that the far right and the far left are really united, and that is on this thing called freedom. Imagine that, freedom. This idea that we can live free, that we have the freedom of speech, the freedom of expression. And Jimmy Dore was one of the very first to sound the alarm over the Russian collusion hoax and nonsense, and he was one of the first to start raising the red flags that, hey, we got problems here in YouTube land and on social media platforms. They are banning, they are gagging, they are censoring, they are removing anything they disagree with, anything that's not approved. And you people on the left, stop rejoicing when an Alex Jones gets kicked to the curb because you're next. Boom, bada bing, and there you have it. So, by the way, I can't stand, there are certain guys on the right I absolutely can't stand. Alex Jones is one of them. Just watch my content here. You'll figure that out real quick. I do watch Kyle Kulinski. Now, I've been watching Kyle off and on now for several years. I remember when he first got started, and every once in a while he would try to wear a sport jacket, and I would just think, Kyle, I earn my living wearing suits and sport coats. Please, somebody help you find sport coats that actually fit you, because you look like you're wearing your dad's clothes and you're trying to look like a grown-up. That's how far back I've been watching Secular Talk. I don't always agree with Kyle, but I do watch him quite a bit, and it's going to be hard for me to do this, and if he happens to watch this, think that I'm not snarking him out, but I'm sorry. Kyle, your defense of Joe Biden goes to so many levels of just really, I honestly thought that Jen Psaki got replaced as the White House spokesperson and spin doctor, and you were basically just handed her talking notes, and that's what you're regurgitating here, because your shilling for Joe Biden on this issue is just absolutely, I gotta be honest, I was a little taken back. Now, I get you've never liked the war in Afghanistan. A lot of us don't. But this defense of Joe Biden was really something. And so we're going to break it down. First of all, I don't know where you got the video that you threw into this commentary of Joe Biden's final speech on Afghanistan, but it was doctored video. Not only was there key edits done to it, but the video was sped up. It was sped up to make Joe Biden sound like, man, he was on point. And man, you talk about a guy who's mentally sharp and he's got it, and no more long pauses or doddering or tripping over his own words. And I mean, he is up there. He is the commander in chief, and he is forceful. He is direct, and it's doctored video. Take a look.
He wanted to tell his critics to shove it. Take a look.
The United States ended 20 years of war in Afghanistan, the longest war in American history. We completed one of the biggest airlifts in history, with more than 120,000 people evacuated to safety. The extraordinary success of this mission was due to the incredible skill, bravery, and selfless courage of the United States military and our diplomats and intelligence professionals.
Definitely sped up to put it in real time because Joe Biden runs on his own time, and that's most of the time is downtime. All right, that's the lightest side of the content we're going to deal with here. I thought I would not go in hot and heavy, but now we're going to get hot and heavy. When you said this, Kyle, I just about lost it.
I have to say, after weeks and weeks of corporate media pro-war, pearl-clutching meltdowns, that was refreshing to hear. So he was defiant once, he was defiant twice, he was defiant 3 times, and this might even be the 4th or 5th time where he came out and was like, did I stutter? It's ironic because he actually used to have a stutter, but he very clearly was like, no, I'm going to stick to this, and you guys can shriek and moan all you want, but that's what we're going to do.
Refreshing? You found it refreshing? Are you really that colossally tone deaf? Are you really that visually impaired you have not seen what's actually happening? This was refreshing. It was refreshing to see Joe Biden defiantly say, I'm pulling our guys out come hell, high water, and I don't care what the outcome or the aftermath is. We're doing it. Let me just say right here, Kyle, no one is arguing to stay. And I'll deal with that later because that's a common little straw man you like to keep going back to. Nobody is arguing to stay. In fact, I've argued for quite a while we never should have been there to begin with. This whole concept of nation building has been an absolute, unmitigated disaster and failure. Now, I know you're a secular talk and you pride yourself in, I don't know if you're an agnostic or an atheist. Obviously, the name pastor for me, my title, is actually something that I really am a pastor. I am a student of theology, and yes, I am a man of faith. And I'm not going to get into the whole is there or isn't there a God argument with you. But you need to realize that we are dealing with a people, an ideology that they very much believe in a God. Different than my God, but they believe in a God. This is a religious war to them. And they don't want our lifestyle. That is why they have gone after us to begin with. They see us as the great Satan. They see us as a decadent, deviant group of people and society. And we are to convert or die. It's no more complicated than that. And this idea that we can, from a secular viewpoint, try to understand and interact there, it's ridiculous. That's why I said we never should have been there to begin with. Now, whatever their involvement was with what happened on 9/11, yes, we were within our rights and the commander-in-chief should have retaliated. Absolutely. Absolutely. Retaliation is a strategy. But going in there, taking over the country, and then thinking that somehow we will be seen as liberators and they will love us, no. And you said something a little bit later on, Kyle, that I agree with. No matter when we left, the thing was going to fall apart. Which is why it was a waste for us to be there and have spilled the blood that we spilled on both sides when it came to the civilian population there. But the American servicemen who lost their lives there, we spilled all that blood needlessly to something that wasn't going to work because they don't want our lifestyle. It isn't even just about the quote unquote, they don't want the democracy. They don't want our form of life in any shape or form. They don't want it. So the whole nation building thing was a fiasco from jump. But to say it was refreshing to hear the president say, I'm out of there and that's it. What about 13 dead servicemen in this process? I didn't hear you make one mention of that, Kyle. You talked about the dead Afghanis as a result of American drone strikes that I might remind you happened under the current yin-yang's boss, Barack Obama. He loved the drone strike. You weep for them while you condemn Americans to basically figure it out on their own how to get out of there.
So at another point in the speech, he said, listen, we warned Americans there 19 times to get out since March. 19 times. So basically saying like, hey, if you're still there, that's sort of on you, dog. Now, he went on to say, like, yeah, we're still going to try to do evacuation missions to get them out. We have the cooperation of the Taliban. So he said that as well. But he also was like, don't say to me about this, because we told them a million times. And I didn't know that fact he brought up, that of the people who remain, most of them are dual citizens.
Okay, your last statement there was just so colossally stupid. I don't even know how to delve into it. Who gives a flying flip if they have dual citizenship? Yeah, maybe they did want to be there while it was a republic, while it was safe for them to walk the streets, while they thought that there was real effective change happening there, and that they might have bought into the delusion that they could be a positive force for good, whatever, fill in the blank, but they thought it was safe for them to be there. You have people on both sides of the aisle, Kyle, who have said, I was just there 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. It was a functioning republic. And then overnight, there is Taliban walking down the streets and they're going house to house and they're rounding people up. And trust me, they're not just having an encounter session with them. They're killing these people. Now again, well, they were given multiple warnings. It's kind of on them, dog, if you didn't get out. Hey, Kyle, you are familiar with the fact that there is now a quid pro Joe, right? Remember that little thing called the impeachment of Donald Trump over a Ukrainian phone call where he supposedly put pressure on the president of Ukraine to nail Hunter Biden or there be no military aid? And it turned out to be that was not the case when we heard the tapes of the phone call. That wasn't even close. Yeah, Trump mentioned, hey, there's some corruption that involve American citizens over there. You might want to look into that. But he didn't, there was no, you won't get this aid, you won't get this, you won't get that if you don't do what I want. There was none of that. But yet, we dragged that out for months. We created an entire impeachment sham. And all of that was happening while a pandemic was being unleashed on us. And the president immediately got excoriated that he didn't deal with the pandemic quick enough. They were all over him in March for not dealing with the pandemic in January, but nobody was thinking about the pandemic in January because we were stuck in the middle of a Pelosi-led witch hunt directed by Adam Schiff for brains. Oh, and the walking little fire hydrant there, Jerry the Nads Nadler. Remember all that, Kyle's? Any of that coming back? So if we're going to be all outraged over a phone call between Trump and the Ukrainian president, what about where Joe actually did? We have the leak. Joe actually did tell the president of Afghanistan, downplay the Taliban takeover. On July 8th, Joe Biden was asked point blank in a press conference, is the Taliban close to taking over the country? He said, absolutely not. There are 300,000 Afghani soldiers. Repeatedly, the news was, hey, we're leaving, but the Taliban, they're at bay. There's no problem. George Snuffleupagus asked him that on ABC, and he said, no, there's no chance. So, hey, put all this together, Kyle. You think maybe that the Americans that were there kept hearing all this mixed messaging and think, well, the president does keep saying it's going to be okay, that even after the American personnel are out, it's going to be okay. You think maybe that's why they didn't pack up immediately? They had invested some life there, and they were really working for effective change, and they thought, this is it. Afghanistan's now going to be a free and independent. They were given constant assurances. There's a topic, I can't deal with it here. It'll be on my other channel. You do know that there are members of the FDA that are resigning because of the wretched messaging. And now they've got the president and Dr. Fauci are out there talking about boosters. And many within the FDA are saying, hold it. What boosters? What are you talking about? We haven't seen any data on boosters. So they're leaving the FDA because they don't want to be a part of any bit of this mixed, wrong messaging. This White House, you don't think that the people who were in Afghanistan were confused over the messaging, being told it was safe, when in reality it wasn't safe? Think this through, Kyle. Do a little homework. Please show me that you're not just reading White House talking points.
Over 120,000 people evacuated, and you want to know how many Americans remain? About a couple hundred. There's about 200 Americans left. They withdrew over 5,000 Americans. That includes service people and contractors and whatever civilians were there. So that's wildly successful, son. That's wildly successful.
Well, apparently you are just reading White House talking points. They got 120,000 ounces. That's wildly successful. Really? Again. People falling off planes, clutching, trying to get on. Afghani mothers handing their children over fences to American soldiers. Why? Because they know what's waiting. They know what's coming. There's only 200 Americans left. Really? All of a sudden now you can trust the numbers coming out of the Biden administration? You sure about that? Here's what I think. I don't think they have a clue how many Americans are still there. Because remember, when it all finally hit the fan, when Biden basically, one of our forts there, bases, we basically just turned the lights out in the middle of the night and left all our stuff behind. You know, things like helicopters, Humvees, night vision gear, guns, weapons, jet fighters, laptop computers, just left it all. When the Taliban knew that we were in retreat, because, you know, the one thing that Trump used to say, and he was so right about, stop announcing dates. Dates only tell the enemy when they can go back to work. So when the Taliban saw that we were actually in withdrawal mode, how exactly were these Americans supposed to get to the airport? How are they supposed to get to the extraction points? Have you thought this so-called wildly successful theory of yours all the way through? No, you really haven't. I was talking to someone in the military who's really having a questioning of everything that they've held near and dear and believe. And this was not some right-wing warmonger. I want to establish that right now. But this person serving in the military, wanting to make sure that there was a representation and preservation of liberty and freedom. They said, you know, for years it has been preached to us, duty, honor, responsibility, duty, honor, responsibility. He said there was no duty, honor, or responsibility in all of our personnel pulling out without making sure that the last American ally was out. Then the military pulls out. the military pulled out first. And oh, it's okay because according to Kyle, we're going to work with the Taliban to get the other 200 Americans out. Right. You do know they're going door to door and they're executing people, right, Kyle? Right? You paying attention to any of this? And again, I'm not arguing we should have stayed. I'm not talking about rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Yes, it was time to leave. We should have never set up shop there to begin with. We should have been out of there 20 years ago. I agree with you. But the fact that we just pulled out and left people to themselves is absolutely unconscionable. We told people, if you can get to the airport, we'll give you a ride. And then we have heard hundreds of testimonials of people who made it to just outside the airport and couldn't get in. They don't know how many are there. And the 120,000 that Joe wants to take a victory lap over, these refugees, you understand that most of them were not evacuated by us. They were evacuated by the French and by the British and by others. Because the American military was already leaving, and France and England and other countries are saying, where are the Americans going? We've got to do something. They facilitated getting 120,000 people out of there, and Biden wants to take the victory lap for it. Do some homework, Kyle. Pull your head out of your arse, put down whatever artificial substance you use for recreational purposes, something that you have admitted to. Because I do think, for the most part, I think you're kind of a smart guy, and I think you're intuitive on certain things, and on other things, you talk about the right just blowing out talking points. You're just blowing out the talking points of the progressive left who think everything about America is wrong. I know you guys hate Bill Maher, but his last monologue a week ago Friday, he was just about spot on. As bad as everything is here, it's not there. Bill Maher, for the things that he has said against President Bush and President Trump, despite the fact that they have publicly said nasty things about him, as Bill Maher said, he never went to bed at night wondering if somebody was going to break into his bedroom, grab him, and tie him up and drag him behind a Toyota Tacoma until he was dead. He wasn't worried about being beheaded. That's not the case of what's happening right now. What don't you get? What isn't thinking into your skull? There are Americans and American allies, people who stuck their neck out for us for 20 years to give us intel, to give us information, to help us. And I agree. And don't keep using this argument. It was time to go. It's time to go. No, duh! But we still owed those people something. We owed them something. What is the matter with you? Unbelievable BS you want to shill. And you want to talk about things like free health care and cancel all debt and free rent and blah, 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 blah. And we should take the money from the war and spend it. I agree. We have wasted billions and trillions of dollars. But you all know what that's about. That is about the military-industrial complex. It is about a bunch of globalists who, this is the way they make money. I get it. But you want to sit there and talk about this utopia that doesn't exist, and every place it's been tried, Venezuela, it has been a colossal, abject failure. So somewhere in the middle is the truth. But to blame the Americans, basically it's on them, dog. Should have gotten out. That's on you, Pet. Really? Spoken like a entitled, privileged brat. You ever known or had a family member, Kyle, that served in the military? Died for something? I'm dealing with a young man right now, very close to my heart. He broke down and cried to me on the phone. that after everything that he has seen out of this White House and this week and the so-called superior commanding officers that led this debacle, he said, the last thing I want to do right now is yell orders into the face of an 18-year-old kid and send him off to die for something that God knows what it is, because if the politicians decide, we're just not into that anymore, it's... wildly successful. Wildly successful. You really need to rethink your tone deafness.
I mean, maybe you could have seen him do a Trump-style thing where it was like a fake withdrawal, where you keep thousands there and you're like, we've withdrawn or something. But you're not going to fool me with that because I follow this stuff like a hawk, and like I told you guys when it was Trump, he was fake withdrawing. Trump said he was going to get out like 4 or 5 times, and he just didn't. And I think the generals behind the scenes could just convince him otherwise.
You know, you're really working hard to try to figure out a way to give a thumbs up and an attaboy to Joe Biden. And once again, of course, Trump's withdrawal was fake. It was all fake. He wasn't going to really do it. Yeah, he was. There was a reason he couldn't, Kyle. Remember that little witch on Capitol Hill, Nancy Botox Pelosi? Remember, first it was Russia collusion hogwash, then it was Ukraine impeachment hogwash, and any time President Trump tried to do something when it came to withdrawing our troops, they said he was doing it to the benefit of the Russians. By the way, with us being completely gone and having left behind billions of dollars in incredible equipment, helicopters, jeeps, tanks, it's not just the Taliban that's going through that stuff. We removed some of their capabilities, right, because they won't be able to figure out how to still make it happen, right? Because you know who's over there right now? The Chinese. Yeah, the Chinese, they're there picking through our stuff, stealing more technology. I could sit here and say, well, maybe Biden really pulled out not to do the right thing, but hey, after all, he owed the Chinese one for all the money they paid the son, who's an expert at nothing, and the money actually went to Quid Pro Joe. Biden was simply the cash mule. And now it was time for him to pay back because he's compromised. See, I can make that argument about Joe Biden like you want to make about Donald Trump when we can't withdraw troops. He's doing that for the benefit of Russia. That was a CNN, Rachel Madcow, PMS NBC, nonstop headline. Remember that, Kyle? Remember Congress stepped in and tied the president's hands and basically said the president can no longer just unilaterally decide to pull troops out? Remember that? Fake withdrawal. There was nothing fake. He wasn't allowed. And on top of that, he was constantly distracted with not one, but 2 back-to-back impeachments. Oh, and let's throw Brett Kavanaugh in between there for another mass distraction. Funny how none of the people that broke into Congress the day the Brett Kavanaugh hearings were happening and clawing at doors and cornering senators on elevators, amazing how none of them were called insurrectionists or went to jail. Wildly successful. Trump was faking it. Trump would have had him out of there in May. But what he would have done, Kyle, was before the last troop left there, they would have made sure that every American was out and that every American ally was secure. And as we were withdrawing, had any of the stuff happened, which we have seen now for 2 weeks play out, if any of that had happened, the withdrawal would have stopped immediately, the enemy would have been engaged, and that would have been the end of them. So Biden's tough talk and a sped-up video, if that's what impresses you, you aren't half as smart as I thought you were.
Kabul was going to fall, Afghanistan was going to fall and become Talibanistan no matter what. So even if we pulled out in 2050, these people would be saying the same things. Oh my God, we should have waited a little longer and withdrawn on a better timeline and moved the deck chairs around on the Titanic a little bit more before we get out. No, just you got to rip the Band-Aid off. You got to get out of there. There's really no reason to be there. And, Biden has really doubled down and tripled down and quadrupled down and held steady on this. And for that, I think he deserves tremendous credit.
Again, and for the last time, no one was arguing to stay. No one was saying we needed a lot more time. I don't care if they were going to set the August 31st deadline in stone. That's fine. I'm good with that. But don't leave. Don't take the last military personnel out of there until the other 200 Americans are safe. What aren't you understanding? This is why the right screams and yells about people like you on the left as being dangerous, psychotically dangerous. Because you espouse a utopia, you crap all over what America is and stands for, as if what's happening there now is just going to be wonderful. No, it's not. It's going to be awful. But again, I've said it before. I will keep saying it. We never should have been there. Don't mess with that over there. If they ever hit us again with another terror attack on our soil, hit them back so hard. But I don't want to set up shop there. There is no one, save for a few hand-picked shills, defending what Joe Biden has done. But Kyle, apparently you are. You getting paid for this, or are you just doing it because you wanted to read their talking points? Why? That's it for this little rant today. Hey, give me a thumbs up. Make sure you're a subscriber to the channel. Smack the bell. Click the word all to get notification of my next rant.